Coast to Coast Cruise.
Oh my God, that was so much fun!
Should have on the line Tonya Pope. She's the president of the Jazzland Park. Tanya, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you today?
I am good. Now, for those of you who have been listening to the podcast, or are a coaster enthusiast, you may know the name Jazzland. It was a former Six Flags Six Flags New Orleans park. In 2000 to 2002, Jazzland opened up in New Orleans, and then in 2003, Six Flags came in and took over and renamed it Six Flags New Orleans till 2005 when Hurricane Katrina hit in August, and the park has been sitting vacant ever since. That's almost 9 years that the park has been sitting there with nothing going on.
That's right.
So tell us what you guys hope to do with the park.
We'd like to bring it back as Jazzland, celebrating Louisiana's unique art, music, and cultural heritage, turning it much more into a theme park than what it was originally. Originally, it was a little bit leaning towards amusement side, where the emphasis was more on just the rides instead of the experience. And then the entire property is actually 224 acres, so we'd like to add a water park, movie studio backlot, and a mixed-use lifestyle center as part of the various amenities to the property.
All right. So you guys have submitted a proposal which has a lot of different artwork and pictures and ideas in there. Can you touch on some of those ideas that you guys hope to put into the park?
Yes. The park itself would be divided into 4 lands. The entry area is the Quarter, which celebrates Louisiana's history and is more focused on New Orleans in general. A lot of the music focus is also in that particular area. Branching off to the right is a new land that's called Sportsman's Paradise, which focuses more on northern Louisiana, our great outdoors, and a lot more interactive activities. To the rear, continuing around the loop, is the beach section of the park, which focuses on our love of fun, and it has much more of the classic amusement side. It also has more of the nostalgia associated with Pontchartrain Beach and Lincoln Beach, which were the 2 amusement parks in New Orleans way back when. Pontchartrain Beach opened up back in the 20s, and then Lincoln Beach came along a little bit after that. So that area focuses on those 2 parks, and like I said, more of the nostalgia items. Then finishing off the loop on the left side is the Bayou, which focuses on Southwest Louisiana and the Cajun culture.
All right. Now, what is the current state of the park? We know that, obviously there's been videos that have surfaced of people out there, checking out the different buildings and coasters and rides. What is the current state of the park?
Currently, it looks a lot worse than it actually is. The infrastructure, the cement, all of that is solid. There's not a crack in the cement anywhere, which for all those that have said, oh, it sinks and this and that, if it sank, there'd be cracks, and there's not any. The buildings themselves were cleaned out and gutted in 2008, so they're essentially empty shells waiting to be turned into something better. There's only one building with serious structural issues and roof damage, and that's up by the entranceway. The rides themselves, most of them we will be replacing. The wooden or the hybrid coaster, Megazeph, that was inspected in 2012 by the Gravity Group. It can be restored. We've got our quote ready, or from them, and we'll be putting timberliner trains on it. All the wood obviously has to be replaced, but it's got a steel understructure. So that part of it is good. We'll be making a few little adjustments here and there for a better ride experience and a little bit more airtime. We'll also be adding a tunnel like the original Zephyr coaster had from Pontchartrain Beach. The steel coasters, one of them we'll be getting rid of. It's in decent enough shape, but there's a coaster just like it up the road in Baton Rouge. And we want more unique experiences. The Jester coaster, that one, it's a Vekoma, and we will be keeping that one. I was on site last month actually with Vekoma, climbing all over it, inspecting it, looking to see what we can do to improve it and to restore it, and it can definitely be restored. And then we're looking, obviously the train lift is, and the chain is in horrible condition. That has to be replaced. But as when we were talking to the Vekoma, they had a lot of really good ideas, including the possibility of adding a launch system. So it will be a brand new experience, even though we're keeping all the steel. The other rides, the log flume, we'll be keeping some of the parts, so it counts a little bit as reusing existing, but we're going to almost double the length of it. So that is more new construction than existing. And then there's a couple flat rides that we probably can rebuild, but if not, we can get identical, the airboats and the pirate ship, both of those. If we can't rebuild them, then we can get identical to come in the exact same spots. But everything else, it might be replaced with similar, like the Ferris wheel. There'll be a Ferris wheel there. It just won't be the one that's there right now. Some of the other things will be moved around. There was a mouse coaster. We will have one too, but it will be a new one, and it will be in a different location. So there'll be things like that happening throughout the park.
All right. So now, what stage are you guys in to getting the approval to go in and redo the park?
We are still in front of the RFP committee. They've met twice so far. The first time March 17th, and then again on April 1st. On the April 1st meeting, they had sent us a list of questions. We answered them, and then they had different questions. So they didn't get the information they wanted in the format they wanted. So we have to go back and send them different documentation. We're working on that, trying to finalize it this week, so that hopefully we can get another meeting this month. And we'd like to have it finalized by the end of this month, if at all possible.
All right. So what goes into the proposal that you guys have been submitting, and what is the committee that you said that you met in front of I just forgot the initials already.
RFP committee.
RFP. What is the RFP committee?
The property itself is owned by the City of New Orleans via the Industrial Development Board. Anytime a government body it has to do something with some of their property, they have to issue a request for proposals. That's the RFP. So the IDB board and the mayor's office combined put out an RFP back in January for redevelopment proposals. The initial deadline was February 28th. We were the only company to submit a proposal by that deadline, but it was an open-ended process, so they could continue accepting other proposals if anything else came in. There has been one other proposal that was received 2 weeks late, but nothing since then. We actually worked on our proposal for over 2 years because we were involved in a previous RFP process, and we knew the opportunity would come back again. So we wanted to stay focused and be able to bring this park back. We have put in literally tens of thousands of man hours of work, doing all of the creative work that goes into a master plan concept, which, folks out there that are familiar with the industry realize it's more than just painting pretty pictures. It's looking at the different ride components, whether we have enough thrill rides versus kid rides versus family attractions, things that are going to appeal to everybody, looking at capacity levels throughout the park to make sure we're balanced, making sure that we have enough retail and food and beverage opportunities throughout. All those different factors go into things, as well as negotiating licensing terms with the different entities that we want to bring into the park. Everything from Phil Phillips, who wrote Sea of Love, which will be our song for one of the rides in the beach area, Better Than Ezra, who's going to do the soundtrack for the Mega Zap coaster, and the Imagination Movers that are going to be up in the quarter area. All those discussions have to happen before you can include them in a proposal, so that you know exactly what you're wanting to do. And in addition to creating the conceptual plan, we also had to look at the finances and the business aspects of it. Will this work? There's lots of hearsay and legends and urban myths surrounding the park. We had to look at the actual business numbers to make sure it made financial sense to proceed with this project. And, looking at the actual data of the operations from 2000 to 2005, we saw that it averaged over 800,000 people on average each year. And that was when it was competing against Astroworld in Houston and operating seasonally. Today, the nearest park to New Orleans is in Atlanta, Six Flags Over Georgia, which is over 450 miles away. So today we have a much larger region to pull from. New Orleans itself also has a very high tourist market. They've received over 9 million guests in 2013 and are continuing to ramp that up. So those different factors went into our decisions, both for what the attendance levels should be, whether we should be open year round, and we decided that made sense because of the tourist and convention market. And we wanted to make sure, like I said, that it was a solid business proposal, that it made financial sense. So all that work went into doing the actual proposal. And I'm not sure if I got if there was a second question in there.
No, that was definitely answered the question.
Okay.
And then my next question was going to be how successful was Six Flags when it's there, but you pretty much touched on that as well, that they had some pretty good numbers. Now, it's interesting that the nearest park is so far away, because I guess I really didn't think about it, because Astroworld also is shut down. That would have been the closest competition.
It is. Atlanta is actually the closest. Dallas would be the next closest. San Antonio, and then Dollywood. Those are the competition, and it's significant hours of travel to get there to any of those locations.
Now, would you guys be a year-round facility or just a seasonal?
We would be year-round. Now, that doesn't mean 365 days. We would, have a shortened week during the off-season, depending on what activities were in town. New Orleans is up for the 2018 Super Bowl, so obviously we'd be open all week for things like that. When we have we have the Sugar Bowl every year. So those activities during the winter months would make us stay open 7 days versus a 5-day. Thanksgiving week, Louisiana, we have the school kids get the entire week off, so it makes sense to be open all week for Thanksgiving, 2 weeks at Christmas, a week at Mardi Gras, spring break. Depending on what conventions are in town, we stay open for those. You had the NBA All-Star Game was in New Orleans. A few months ago we had WrestleMania here last month. So depending on what activities are happening in the city, we would adjust our opening days accordingly.
Okay. Now, you were talking about having some musical artists tied in with some of the rides and doing soundtracks. Is there going to be a lot of licensing that would have to happen in order to put those kind of things together?
It is, and we've already done all the lead work for the most part. Obviously Better Than Ezra. We had a lot of discussions for that one. We had with Phil Phillips originally when we started talking with him and his family 2 years ago. He did not own the rights to the song himself entirely. There was two different music companies that were in charge of it, but he has since bought the rights back, so he owns it fully himself now. So that simplifies the licensing issues. But for everything that we're bringing in, whether it's a personality, whether it's a Louisiana brand, whether it's music, licensing is a issue that has to be dealt with, from a financial standpoint, we have to make sure it makes sense too. But those are all legal requirements that we have to go through.
Yeah, that was the one thing that I was kind of looking at. Is I know there's another park, the Hard Rock Park, which opened with a lot of different licensing, And
Yes.
and some people feel obviously its big issue was it didn't have attendance. But we all assumed that the licensing was eating up a lot of the money a lot quicker because every ride had something that had licensing tied to it and songs and things like that.
That was some of the problem, but not nearly all of it. But some of what we're doing in New Orleans too is we're working with groups, local music groups like Tipitina's Foundation and the Ellis Marsalis Center of Music in the Musicians Village, to where we can utilize songs with either very low licensing costs or possibly even public domain because they're older, and getting paying local musicians to record new sets of those, so that we can use that for our ambient music and some of our ride music. And plus, it lets us put local musicians to work.
Yeah, that's smart. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the previous Six Flags Park. What were some of the flaws with the Six Flags Park that can be fixed with the new Jazzland?
Some of the flaws actually went back to the original Jazzland. Six Flags tried to fix, but there was definitely a lack of shade and too much dependency on outdoor attractions, where our summers are really, really hot. And that didn't lend itself to having guests stay. They came, but some of the days were 6-hour days or even shorter because they just couldn't take the heat.
Mm-hmm.
Six Flags did come in and add shade, add trees, but trees take time to grow, so it wasn't overly successful. They tried to fix it, but it didn't do as much as they needed to do. Our plan has a lot more indoor attractions, so guests will be able to enjoy air conditioning. And we'll also be able to get out of the rain. One of the things in New Orleans and Louisiana in general is that you can almost count on an afternoon shower every day. And if you don't have indoor attractions for your guests to run to, they run to the parking lot. And again, they don't stay as long as you need them to stay. So we are focusing on indoor attractions and making sure that we have adequate shade cover throughout the park. And the shade cover will not be, ugly blue tarps. They will be aesthetically pleasing, whether it's, foliage, whether it's fake trees we have to bring in until the real trees grow enough. Whatever the case might be, it will be pretty.
All right. Okay, so we talked a lot about this. One thing we didn't talk about is you and your background in the industry. How did you get started in this project, and what is your background in the amusement industry?
I came into the industry about 15 years ago. Going into college, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to design rides for Disney. The head of engineering at LSU kind of put a blank face on when I told him as a freshman, and he was guessing around trying to tell me what I should major in. So it's something I always wanted to do. Graduating out of LSU, it wasn't necessarily an option. And I did have an opportunity to go over to NASA's JSC and had an incredible experience over there. But I did manage to get my way back into the industry, kind of through a back door with zoos and museums, designing kiosks and interactive experiences. And then about 15 years ago, I met some folks that were former Universal creatives and Disney Imagineers, and we started working on some projects, a whole bunch of things that never got built, which anybody in the industry can tell you. You can almost make an entire career out of designing things that never got built. Excuse me. Then with my company, we started getting folks around the country wanting they wanted to build a roller coaster capital in Iowa or in North Houston, and with good conscience, I just could not take those jobs. It was like, no, you don't have it's not going to work. I would be stealing your money if I designed this for you. That it's just not going to work. Which makes it a little hard to keep your company afloat when you do that. But, I could not take people's money if I did not think their project had a leg to stand on. But I eventually had a client with a solid plan, with financing, and he wanted to. It was out west. They wanted to build a theme park, and it ended up falling through. But they had at the time Six Flags was selling properties, so he asked me to find an existing park that they could just buy. And that got me more into the site development and looking for business opportunities. And throughout that entire process, I had the opportunity of meeting and working with major companies, major media companies, and looking at different sites across the globe, really, and being able to associate the right brand with that right property, whether it's a theme park or whether it's a restaurant. It didn't really matter as long as it made sense that the two went together. With New Orleans, it's in my backyard, so it was a little bit different in that particular case. I'm up here in Baton Rouge, about an hour and a half away. And when that opportunity came up, I knew that I was working with all of the right people. I work with people that work with all the major companies, that have designed and operated for all the major companies. And I wanted something, because it was a city-owned property, something that was going to really be a benefit to the community. So, that's really what spurred me to take it on and want to do it ourselves instead of passing it on to somebody else. We started working with children's youth organizations on ways that this park could foster education, could foster job training, could help to lower the crime rate in New Orleans, give kids hope for their future. And in doing that, that's really where we came up with going back to Jazzland and celebrating Louisiana and how great our state is. It really became a project with legs. And like I said, with working with the people that I've been working with, we've got Roy Turley, who opened Fiesta Texas back when it was Gaylord before Six Flags took over. And a whole bunch of amazing people that are going to be working on this project that their resumes are incredible. And that's really how we got involved in New Orleans, though, was that it was in my backyard, and I knew how much good it could do for the community.
So, what kind of price tag would we be looking at for this for Jazzland?
Right now, it would be fairly competitive with a Six Flags ticket. We're looking at $69 daily price for, or rack price for a one-day ticket. Obviously, there'd be discounts whether you're coming with a group, whether you've bought it at a local store, AAA, whatever the case might be. The season passes, we're looking at $99, and actually that would be an annual pass, not a season pass. Good for 1 day or 1 year after the first use, whenever that first use happens to be.
Okay. All right, and now, obviously, doing this show for the last 8 years, we've seen parks come and go. The ideas of parks come and go, like Orlando Thrill Park, and we've seen parks come and go, like Hard Rock Park. What are the chances that we will see this go all the way through and succeed?
I actually feel fairly confident about it right now. I'll know a lot more tomorrow. The IDB has a meeting tomorrow. It's not the RFP review committee, but it is the actual owners, and they're supposed to give an update. With politicians involved, you never completely know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. But I know that if we can get the green light, it definitely will happen. We've got the finances in line. We've got a solid plan behind us. We're ready to literally start construction. They would see work, minimal work this summer just because of filming that's going on, but they would see activity immediately. And then as soon as the film company gets off site, they'd see solid construction happening immediately.
All right. What is the film company doing on site?
Jurassic World is filming right now. Or they will be filming fairly shortly. They're building sets, which will be the 4th in the Jurassic Park series.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, that's really cool.
It is. And Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, which opens in July, was filmed there last summer.
Is there a lot of filming? I know you guys were talking about the backlot area as well. Is there a lot of filming that happens in Six Flags? Or excuse me, I meant in New Orleans.
There is a lot in New Orleans. Louisiana actually had more feature films shot here last year than in California.
Oh, wow.
Louisiana offers some incredible film incentives, which is what brings the different companies here. We have a lot of infrastructure now in New Orleans, sound recording studios, sound stages, but we don't have a backlot, which is one of the reasons that they've been using the Six Flags property, is that they need open space that can be secured and that can be controlled. They don't have tourists walking up and down the street. They don't have to pay extra security and police to block off streets that are in town. And places where they can have stunt work and pyrotechnics and things like that in a controlled environment. That's really what they need and why they love the space out at the Six Flags Park so much. Most of these companies have been using the parking lot because it's a big open space, it's fenced in, and they can build whatever it is they need to build. Our film production backlot will be moved over a little bit. It'll be on a second parcel that's slightly separated from the theme park area. But we're expecting it to be booked fairly consistently throughout the year.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was looking at Google Maps, and for those of the people listening to the show, they know that's all I do. When I'm doing interviews, when I'm talking about parks, I'm always looking at it from space. And it's interesting because there's a lot of activity going on in the parking lot. And I just assumed that it was some type of like deconstruction of the park itself. But now that you say that, there's trailers and all sorts of stuff. So it must be some type of movie set or set for something that they're using to do some filming.
It is. And actually the newest trailer that came out for Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, almost half of that trailer was shot in that parking lot. If you go see the movie, the ape compound itself was constructed there. And what they can do with film magic today is incredible. They've got, you would think that you're out in the mountains, and some of the mountain scenes were filmed elsewhere, but if they're in their little compound, it was at that park. And they've kept it busy. They had Percy Jackson Sea of Monsters there 2 years ago. That one actually used part of the park itself. But everybody else has pretty much used the parking lot or Nicolas Cage Stolen. They use the entry French Quarter kind of area, which, as bad as the park looks, if you see the Mardi Gras scenes in that movie, that's that area of the park painted up. And it looked bad again about 6 weeks later, but but it got really good looking there while they were there filming.
All right. So exciting stuff. So now we just have to keep our fingers crossed for tomorrow that we hear some good news.
Yes. Like I said, it's not the committee itself, but the IDB does own the property. So, hopefully we'll have a meeting of the committee again fairly soon so that we can move forward.
Now, the overall goal of the committee is to try to get the amusement park back up and running, or are they just looking for something to do with the property?
They're looking for something to do. 2 years ago, they proceeded with an idea to turn it into an outlet mall. That idea never materialized, and they canceled the contract this last October. The city still likes retail, but that's just not really the best use of the property. There's so much available acreage in New Orleans East. There's really no reason to tear it down to do something like that. You can build that on the available acreage next door.
All right. All right, well, you'll have to keep us updated and let us know how things are going.
We will, and you can always keep track of us on Facebook. We're Jazzland Park across all the social media, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I know we're on Pinterest now. I haven't posted anything, but we're there.
half of the things you named, I still don't know how to use. Like Twitter's been out there forever, and it seems like it should be the easiest thing to do. And for some reason, I cannot grasp Twitter at all. But
well, we don't post that often on Twitter, but we do occasionally some pictures of the park currently, or we do have a few previous when it was open and then after the storm. We got lucky with a few different shots that fans have sent us. There's one of the cool zone that's been floating around the internet for forever. Post Katrina, but we have one from one of our fans that's a picture of that, almost the exact same camera angle before Katrina while it was still open. So we've got that up there on both Twitter and on Facebook. We do try to post pictures as often as we can from the park and what it looks like today.
Wow. All right. Well, we're hoping the best for you guys, and we'll keep track of you guys on the social media and everything. And Tanya, thank you for stopping by.
Thank you. No problem.
All right, Drew, you can breathe.